yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. No matter how long it may take us to overcome this premeditated invasion, the American people in their righteous might will win through to absolute victory.
Iwo Jima was a Japanese homeland type island, and it was very strongly defended. So Americans had to use three Marine divisions, two in assault, the 4th and the 5th Marines were in assault, and the 3rd Marine Division was in reserve. I was with the 4th Marine Division. We had eventually 60,000 people on that island, and Japanese had about 22, 23, and they fought to the bitter end. They were tremendous fighters, and it took a long time to get them dislodged. It was in a landing that most of the casualties occurred because, as I said, the island was small. They had gun emplacements surrounding the beach, and Mount Suribachi was overlooking everything, so they had people that could see every movement we were making and could direct fire when necessary for ships or that came close to shore, things like that. My job was as forward observer for naval gunfire. So the plan was that the troops land at H hour, and gunfire is protecting them. There is a blanket of gunfire 400 yards to their front. And as soon as the troops land, then control of that gunfire goes over to the forward observer for naval gunfire, and he takes over from that point in directing any shelling. We were ordered, or instructed, I should say, not to fire rockets within 500 yards of the front line. Well, our commanding officer wanted that fired directly at the base of that cliff, and that was within 100 yards of the front line. And it was a very difficult thing. I had to make sure the ship recognized the target. I even had to, they asked me where I was, and I held my map behind my back so the ship could see where the front line was. And they did a tremendous job. They fired over 100 rockets within a matter of a minute, and the troops, of course, with other factors involved, were able to move out, and we had some casualties, but those happened every time you moved. The worst moment I encountered was actually in a landing. My landing was, actually it was H+1 hour, so I was not the first one on the beach. But when we landed, the landing boat, the bow wouldn't go down. So the coxswain, or boatswain, I'm not sure, tried to keep it perpendicular to the beach so it wouldn't be swamped. And in the meantime, we're a target now. We're a sitting duck, and we got a hail of mortars. Well, the coxswain wanted to back off. He said, "I got to get the hell out of here." And said, "No." He said, "Have the troops go over the side." And that's how deep was the water. It was 8 feet. No way. These men will sink like lead. So try once more. Everyone on command push, and the bow went down. But that's when we got off the boat when the porters were all around us. When the bow dropped down, we scattered, and I jumped into was a depression that a shell had made, I suppose, and there was the leg of a human leg, no clothing on it at all. At that moment, we knew we had to get out of there because the beachmaster was shouting over a speaker, "Everyone get off the beach as fast as you can." So I had to move forward. So, but now I had lost contact with the guys. I had to, at one point I got up to move out and move forward, and nobody was around to follow me. So I hesitated long enough till my little Navajo Indian fellow, who was my radio man, showed up, and we went inland. Now, as I said, I wasn't committed till the next day. So from that moment on, I remember climbing the cliff, bullets whizzing, lots of noise. A bullet whizzes, and if it's very close, it'll snap. You hear a snap. Mortars, a strong pop. But the big guns, and the Japs had the biggest. They had, it was later found out it was a mortar, but we thought it was some sort of a rocket crudely launched on a wooden platform. But it sounded, we called it a trolley, as it would whiz back overhead and land behind us, maybe a 500-pound shell, and it was, it shook the ground, and you felt it, even if it wasn't very close to you, and it was a thunderous noise. When a rocket lands, if it's a vertical drop, and the shell goes upward, and shrapnel, and anyone near it, of course, gets torn to pieces. It was rough. I could see flamethrowers, guys with flamethrowers and demolitions as they approached a pillbox up on the edge of a hill, and I could see that, and I could see guys moving forward. And at nighttime, it was a problem. Our lines had to be coordinated so there were no breaks in the line. Sometimes an outfit would pick up some ground ahead of us and would have to pull back because the adjacent units didn't move up with them or weren't able to. Well, one day, and during the night, 3 Japs with the dynamite attached to their waist penetrated our line, or possibly came through one of the caves. We don't know. And so we had to go on radio silence because I was firing star shells, and radio silence, and the guys got them with mortars. The next day I was able to go over and see the bodies, and the dynamite didn't explode. I'll never understand that, but there were 3 dead bodies. The demolitions people were used in conjunction with flamethrowers, and they had to dig the enemy out of bunkers. They're small bunkers, and you could only see the opening, the slit, and they'd have to creep up the side of the bunker, and with the flamethrower, first the demolitions. They throw the demolition, and with the smoke and what have you, the flamethrower guy would move up and blast the opening of the target. People today should understand that war is hell, and nobody, in my opinion, wins. Everybody is on the losing side. They either lose people, they lose territory, they lose. It's a total loss, and it's a shame that we, as intelligent people, still have wars that we get involved in. World War II was a war that was fought by the bulk of the youth of America. And the spirit that existed is beyond me, because not only were the boys, they weren't, I wouldn't say they were all eager to fight a war, but they were willing. And so all my friends, we all had the same attitude. We did our job, and we came back and went into civilian life.
Well, before I got to England, we were about 600 miles off England. We were sitting up and expecting the Luftwaffe. And all of a sudden the seas got so rough that a rogue sea smashed the side of the Queen Mary, and she went over on her side. And I was hanging on and looking down, and I was practically almost dead, because you can't have a ship that big laying over. According to my reading the captain's report, it was, if it was laying that way 5 minutes more, she would have been down with 9,000 troops. But another rogue sea fortunately hit the side of the ship, and she started up. When the ship righted itself, there were many injured soldiers down below, because the mess hall, the chairs and tables flew against the walls, and they got injured by the furniture. My buddy and I up in the crow's nest were hanging on to the rail. We reboarded the nest, and we were anchored into our seats and stabilized. Well, the combat started. I had to come down the side of the ship on a rope, and all my men got into a landing craft. And the landing craft was, I told you, on the right side of the British, and the British had the left side going north to the other side of the mountain. We were going to this, we were altered up to the mountain. So that was the middle of Salerno Beach. I hit the beach with my men, and I stumbled over 5 or 6 bodies of American soldiers of the first wave. When I got up higher on the beach, I almost counted 1,000 dead soldiers of American forces. And the shells were roaring in, and the mortars were roaring in on us. And we were just trying to get through the water and go up the beach. And this we landed on just the first sandy cliff, and we dug in, and we started firing away. And all of a sudden, the captain came over to me and he said, "Corporal, the right side of the mountain, there is strafing coming in. You're a man who knows a lot about the flights of planes and the enemy. I want you to take this radio, this telephone, put it on your shoulders, walk down the beach to the end where the huge mountain dips into the water. There'll be a huge line of wire, and put it on your back over there, and you're to go up the mountain at least a mile or 2, or a half a mile, as far as your body can take you. Of course, you might be hit a sniper, and then you'll be gone. This reel is connected to the British Navy and the American Navy. So I went there and I started up, and I could see a creek, and I didn't want to be seen going up the mountain by enemy. So I put myself in the creek, and I'm a tall person. The water landed up to here, and I stayed below the level of the line of the earth on both sides, and I worked up for about a half a mile. And I found a tree nest where I could hide, and I picked out from there a spot where I could start seeing the entire beach of Salerno, with the British on the way out there on the other side, and it looked like an aircraft pilot looking down on the earth. And I turned the reel of the telephone, and the voice came over and said, Navy Central Committee. Who's calling? And I told him, Corporal Rieff up in the mountain is calling. And I see a Focke-Wulf 190 coming out of the Naples area, and he's heading up toward the sun on the beach line. And he's going higher and higher. And he is disappearing so that you don't see him. Take all your ships who have the artillery and anti-aircraft on it and face there, because he's going to come down. And sure enough, they thanked me. The Focke-Wulf 190 started coming down and strafing the beach where the Americans were. And they were ready. They put up a launch of the 40 millimeter on their ships, and they hit the plane. The plane went over into the British side, turned over on its side, and landed into the ocean. And the pilot disappeared, and the plane disappeared. And I had to stay there 2 weeks, and I had no food. So I started looking for berries, and I saw on the other side a farmland. And that whenever I had a chance, I went down to the farmer, and I came with a gun, and I told him, you've got to give me food. I won't kill you. It's an Italian farmer, but you got to give me food. He said he would give me food every time I came down. I said, but don't you dare come up, because you'll be shot. He says, io non sono fascista. I am not a fascist, he says. I says, well, then I trust you. And that's how I stayed there 2 weeks, giving information until the message I got from Central Office of the Navy saying that there's going to be close to 100 C-47s with troops, paratroopers, which we need badly, and they're going to land at 1 o'clock in the morning into the center of that huge horseshoe. And there is going to be a lighting of oil cans in a half-mile circle, so they'll know where to drop. You let us know if that is the C-47s as it passes over your side of the mountain. So at 1 o'clock in the morning that night, I hear the roar of planes, and I could see the shape was the C-47. When I reported it, those oil cans of a half-mile circle lit up, and I started to seeing parachutes dropping down into the center of the Salerno beach. I just stood there watching, aghast, because that checked out the Salerno battle, because we then started a movement that was so strong that we headed for Naples. Down below, I got the Bronze Star from the Salerno invasion when I was ordered to go to the top of the, as far as I could on the mountain and report as the only one who could see and identify planes of the enemy, and report it down to Central Command before they were strafed or bombed.
After 10 days, we went up to Swansea, Wales. From there, we disembarked, and they put us on a troop train. And for where we were going, I didn't have the slightest. From there on, we got into trucks, and they brought us out into we still didn't know where we were. And we unloaded, set up our tents. You had to watch where you were walking because we were set up in the cow fields. And of course, it started. So someone always has to be on guard duty. So I pulled guard duty that night. And it was obvious that there was a British field taking off to bomb at night. And this one ship didn't make it. And the explosion was unbelievable. And I said that was the first sign. And I said, you're going to get killed around here. On June 6th, I was out waiting for a convoy to bring it down to Southampton. And the ship started going over, and I knew something different was going on. And that particular night, we finished that. We went back to our company, where we were near Maidenhead, as they used to call it. Everybody was gone. They were on their way. So we followed them down, and within about 5 or 6 days later, after getting on an attack cargo and going over to Normandy I arrived there about 4 or 5 days later. But when it was time to go over, we went over the side and we got onto what was called a Rhino, which was carrying heavy equipment. So we went in on that. They put my motorcycle there. There was 3 of us in the company. And we sat there all night because we couldn't go in any further because we hit a sandbar and we couldn't move. And we were gambling or making bets whether the Germans were going to hit us or shell us at night. But that time, most of the German Air Force, we had complete air superiority. So when I got off, they threw me on the ramp because my motorcycle, I couldn't reach between the Rhino itself and the plate that I had to get on to ride out. And so 4 men picked me up, lifted me up, and threw me on the ramp. I had started the motor. I rode down the ramp, through the mud, got up on the sand, and just went right up to the top of the cliff. When we got up to the top of the cliffs, they were all white tapes, so we had nowhere to go. So we made a right turn, went in, I don't even remember how far, quite a few hundred yards, and we just sat there for days. I kept asking, where are the 9th Engineers? And as I came down to one road, there was one of my teammates there, and I said, Buckley, am I glad to see you? I said, what's going on? He says, dig a hole for tonight and stay out of the ditches because they machine gunned the ditches. So we went in and started to dig in, which we did, and we were there for almost a month. There was constant shelling at night because that's where the Battle of St. Lo was going on. Most people don't know that we had a gas alert behind St. Lo before the breakout. And I just happened to be on perimeter guard that night. And I went down the line, waking them up in the holes. I said, wake up, there's a gas alert, because the gas alert would be 3 shots fired and a klaxon. And I went down the line, and most of us had thrown our gas masks away. And they came out really frightened. They didn't know what to do. And at that time, I jokingly found a German gas mask, and I tied it on my motorcycle. They used to tease me. I carried that thing almost for the whole war. I even sent it home. They used to joke about it, Keegan and his Nazi gas mask. But the camaraderie between the men was really unbelievable. In July, toward the end of July, and I met a man here while talking to him, that I saw the fighters. I was standing in the field, and I could identify the different fighters coming in to knock out the ack-ack. And then the bombers started to come in, and they started to bomb. And of course, the dust lifted and drifted. And from what I heard later on, 1,000 of our own men were killed by friendly fire, including a general. And that was called a breakout, when they broke out, because the Germans were absolutely pummeled. The Germans were cut off, and it was called the Falaise Gap. When I went through there, the slaughter there, the Air Force just, it was narrow roads, and the Air Force just went up and down and just destroyed them. They lost over 90,000 men. We lost almost the same amount. From there, we moved up, going up further and further and further. And then we finally moved into Paris. I was there when Paris was liberated. It was an unbelievable experience. I went into the Bois de Lune, and the French were there holding wine and flowers and so forth, and really wonderful. And then we just waited. And we had to move back because Eisenhower didn't want to have his command in Paris per se. So they moved back to what they call Versailles. So we moved back a little further, and we set up in a little town called Buc, which we were really security for our headquarters. Well, we were told we couldn't even talk to Germans because they said, don't even, if a child comes up and they give you a bouquet, be careful, it might be a grenade in there. You were not allowed, or you're not authorized to talk to anyone. But what it was, the war was winding down at that particular time. So our next duty was to run a POW camp. So we set up a POW camp very close, it was near the Rhine River, and they were bedraggled, God help them. Mostly old men and boys left. But I wore a British paratroop helmet because our helmets as a motorcyclist were useless. So I stopped one Jeep one night, and the man was shaking, and as he opened it was in the winter, it was very cold. He stuck a gun in my stomach, and I said, take it easy, take it easy. He was shaking because the Germans are coming through trying to get at Eisenhower. So that was our job at that particular time. But the beauty of being a motorcycle, it gave you your assignment, you went and you did it. The responsibility was your own, but it gave you freedom. But I really did the best I could. I love this country with a passion. It gave me everything. It gave me my family. My parents came over from Ireland in the 1850s. And on my mother's side, they came over in the 1880s. When you read Irish history, you'll cry. So America is the land of the free and the home of the brave. God bless America.